Hello, welcome to the National Anthem YouTube channel. I'm Mark, I'm your host for this video, and I'm the founder and fellow journalist of the National Anthem. And today is going to be a little bit of a departure from the content that you'll be familiar with from the National Anthem if you've been following. It's not going to be a film review or an album review, it's going to be a review on a type of literature, more specifically postmodern fiction. Okay, so what is postmodernism? Well, postmodernism is a type of literature that emerged during the 20th century that consists of ambiguous experimentation and avant-garde writing. An example of modernist literature is Ulysses by James Joyce, which also contains experimentation and avant-garde writing. But the key difference is that there are answers to be deciphered in Ulysses, whereas in postmodernism, everything is ambiguous. Everything is up to the reader to interpret. That is a key theme of postmodernism, is the subjectivity of truth. So the subjectivity of truth in postmodern writing compared to the objective truth that has to be deciphered in Ulysses and modernist writing is a vital difference between the two. So now that we've discussed what is meant by postmodernism, it's best if we go through the rankings, which will be ranked from least to most difficult, so that newcomers can know a place to start and can know where to break off from there. The first book on the list is The Crying of Lot 49 by Thomas Pynchon. This is Thomas Pynchon's sophomore novel, written in 1965, and it is about Oedipa Maas, who is a suburban wife who's bored to death with her life, but after being made executrix for the estate of an ex-lover called Pierce Inverarity, she uncovers a conspiracy around LA about a clandestine postal service named the Trastero. What is the Trastero? Well, it is a postal service, but it's encapsulated in the novel by a symbol, as I'll show you. Boom. The key theme here is paranoia. Paranoia is prevalent in all of Pynchon's novels, but here it is seen in Oedipa because we cannot decipher as the reader what is true and what is false. And it's very fun to read. It almost feels like you're on some kind of hallucinatory substance. You feel just as disorientated as Oedipa must feel, going around and looking for some conspiracy that may or may not exist. The reason that this is least difficult on the list is because of its size. It's a very short book. It's only about 120 pages long. And it's easy to get through. It's enjoyable. It's culturally relevant even today. It's thematically relevant even today. And you start to enjoy the characters and the world that you're in. So it's not a slog to get through. And even if you feel like it's a slog, I would urge you to break through it, to break through the trepidation and to get to the end. Once you get to the end, maybe in a month, maybe in a year, you can come back to it and start to enjoy it that bit more. If you want to start off for postmodernist novels, you should start off with The Crying of Lot 49. So second on the list is Beat Generation Sweetheart, William Burroughs, Naked Lunch, which came out in 1959. A good analogy for Naked Lunch is that it's a labyrinth. The book contains 12 chapters, or called vignettes, that all revolve around the power struggle between the state and its people. But that's not as black and white as Orwell maybe portrays it as. It's definitely got depictions of Orwell, but it's very grotesque, it's very violent, it's very disturbing. And I think David Cronenberg, I've not seen it, made a film about Naked Lunch, which is supposed to be very good and supposed to encapsulate the tone very well. Why read Naked Lunch? Look, Naked Lunch isn't for everyone. And I know the first time I read it, I loved it. But I'm a big fan of horror, I'm a big fan of David Lynch. But if you enjoy Crying of Lot 49 and you like the writing style and you like the hyperbole behind it and you like the stream of consciousness of it, you will like Naked Lunch. You just have to take what is said by Burroughs with a pinch of salt. Okay, next on the list is the magnum opus by David Foster Wallace, 1996's Infinite Jest. What is there to say about Infinite Jest that hasn't already been said? The narrative follows Hal and Cadenza, Mario and Cadenza, Orin and Cadenza, and their father, James and Cadenza, who created the school that they all have went to at one time, called Enfield Tennis Academy. This is a school that thrives itself on the possibility of being professional tennis players. Tennis at a high level is mirrored with Ennet House, which is a drug recovery unit where another main character, Don Gately, works and lives. So, what do these two lives have in common? That being Infinite Jest. Infinite Jest is a film that is told to be so good that once you watch it, you cannot stop watching it until you die. David Foster Wallace is notoriously difficult to decipher. But for me, reading Infinite Jest, it wasn't difficult. It wasn't a book that I thought, wow, this is really hard. I don't know what David Foster Wallace is talking about right now. I understood what he was saying almost every single step of the way. The only difficulty I had facing Infinite Jest was the length. It's a big book, and a big book means a lot of writing. So there are times in the book where you'll meet characters and will revolve around something that is not brought up ever again in the book, which I'm okay with, which I love. I love hearing all these perceptions. I love hearing all these streams of narrative. But you have to be prepared for it if you are wanting to read Infinite Jest. It is long. It can at times feel tedious, and the endnotes, which were used by David Foster Wallace experimentally to give you integral parts of the story, can be seen as a bit of a slog to get through. After roughly the 400 page mark, a series of plots unfold and you will be hooked like that. You just have to give it that time to plant the seed. Once it has, you will love it, I promise. Okay, now the hardest book in the ranking system, the quintessential postmodern book of all time, Thomas Pynchon's Gravity's Rainbow. This is not only my favourite novel of all time, by a large margin, it is my favourite piece of art I have ever consumed. Now that's a big statement, especially considering the amount of amazing books that we've spoken about today. But there's a reason for that. To provide extra context how good Gravity's Rainbow is, Thomas Pynchon at the age of 16 went to Cornell, Ivy League Cornell University in New York to study physics. He then later worked for Boeing to help combat against German V-2 rockets that were made originally in World War II, which is what Gravity's Rainbow is about. The story, if it can be condensed as much, is about a fictional character called Tyrone Slothrop, who has a coincidental habit of having sex in places in London where the German V-2 bomb will land 4 to 10 days later. This sounds outrageously paranoid, and it is. That is the point of it. The paranoia in Gravity's Rainbow is unlike anything you will ever see. You should leave all preconceptions you have on art at the front page of Gravity's Rainbow. It not only breaks down the life of Tyrone Slothrop, who believes his penis has been conditioned by a doctor called Laszlo Yamf, who also created plastic polymer insulation for the V-2 rocket for the German chemical company IG Farben. Slothrop believes that Imipolex G, which is the insulation, is connected to his penis, which is connected to the V-2 rocket. But to say that that is the story of Gravity's Rainbow is only breaking the surface. There are over 400 characters in this, and it took Thomas Pynchon less than 10 years to write. But I should warn you as well, this is easily the most difficult book I have ever read, without question. For a reason. There are a lot of times where the boundary between coherence and incoherence is blurred, meaning a lot of what's said in Gravity's Rainbow is up for debate whether or not it actually happened or whether or not it makes sense, as well as this literary maze. There is a lot of physics, there's a lot of mathematics, there is a lot of psychological references, there is a lot of 1940s Hollywood references. It is a very impenetrable book. I mean, I've only read it once and I have gathered less than 5% of the story. Easily. And that is the point. You should want to read this more than once. You should want to read this more than twice, because it is impossible. It is absolutely impossible for you to pick up on everything that this book has to offer. But that is the beauty of it. It deals with paranoia in a time that is so prevalent to paranoia. Our society relies on trends. It relies on a relative cyber image. And Pynchon discusses this at length. This is a very talked about topic in Gravity's Rainbow. It is very, very relevant to today's society. Not only the most difficult book that I could recommend, but it is the most relevant book I could recommend. The last book I wish to discuss that isn't ranked is my book, Document 2. Document 2 is also a postmodern novel and shares some of the same tropes I've mentioned in the last 4 novels. It's about a philosophy lecturer in 2036 America who struggles with identity. Not only this, instead of admitting to his identity crisis, he tries to combat it through taking LSD and trying to reignite his past self. Document 2 is available on Amazon through ebook and paperback edition, that I will link below in the description. And that's it for my postmodern ranking. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you are intrigued now to pick up one of these books. Remember, Crying of Lot 49, Naked Lunch, Infinite Jest, Gravity's Rainbow. If you have read any of these books, comment below, let me know, discuss it, tell me what you thought of each of them. I'd love to hear it. Thank you so much, guys. It's been a pleasure. Enjoy.